And now we are live on Substack as well. Welcome back to After Hours on the Ask Dr. Vincent platform with me, Dr. Vincent, and I can call him friend now, my
You certainly
friend,
can.
my co-host, and
Stephen.
my co-founder.
Yeah, that's right. And for those listeners who catch up on our posting of both of us going live, you'll see that I'm wearing my red glasses today. Every week I try to wear a different set of glasses.
Yes,
I am slowly running out.
you, this is the craziest thing, right? Because I, uh, I did not even notice it. You people noticed it first and asking, are those different pairs? And I was like, well, let me just ask him. And I asked you this. Like a
Yeah.
few people actually commented and sent messages about the out of
Yeah.
everything, the
Well,
glasses.
and these ones have red arms as well as a red
Is
frames.
the whole thing, the rim and the yeah.
Hmm.
You really need to go to askdrvincent.com, click subscribe. It's free for now, and you will get the full episode every Thursday night as long as Substack is working. So I know that last week I said that I promised I was uploading, it was not uploading, and we ended up sending it out yesterday. But if you are watching us live, you get the best of both worlds, and that is the topic of today because over the past few episodes we have been deep diving into a few topics that really seem to divide people. Say, for example, breakfast,
Mm.
whether or not it's healthy to drink coffee, should or should you not take a nap? Because we talk about things like sleep quality. Uh, and the other thing that came in mind also about the metrics that you gather together, or rather your gadgets, your Apple Watch or your
Yeah.
Garmin, your Fitbit.
Dr. Vincent, how many devices do you have that are tracking your movements?
I used to have two, so the smart ring
Mm-hmm.
as well as the Apple Watch. But I do
Yep.
think that whilst I really like all the scoring and the metrics and the data, because I think that those are sources of information that I can use to determine whether or not I need to make changes,
Yeah.
I do find that overwhelming. So, as a matter of fact, there is a study that was published recently that people with sleeping problem, insomnia,
Mm.
they actually get a lot less quality sleep when they are too obsessive about the data.
I think it can certainly breed anxiety around that. And also, if you think maybe that you're not sleeping well, and then you have an app that tells you that's even worse than you think, like I think that's pretty bad.
I know, and people who are not sleeping well, they know they're not sleeping well because they're
Yeah,
not
you
sleeping,
don't need
right?
an app.
You don't need an app to tell you that, uh, you're not sleeping well, Stephen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, if you're not sleeping well, or if you wake up in the morning and you find that you're still really super tired, or your brain is still going as well, sometimes that happens to me. I wake up and it's like I've woken up from a dream, and
And you're in
I'm
your dream, you're
still
working.
processing something. I'm working. That's right.
See, this is a crazy thing, right? Because I actually mentioned this is one of my interviews that I did with other podcasts when I was the guest, and I mentioned that I dream about work,
Mm.
and I never, and the host said that, she said, "Oh, that's a really bad thing." I was like, "Is it?" Because I actually, um, believe it or not, sometimes I feel that having that dream is almost like deja vu because when I actually be in in that meeting in real life, or when I'm
Mm.
actually doing the task in real life, I sort of kind of have like, in my dream I did this, because I'm one of those people who remember dreams.
Wow.
Do you?
I remember some dreams, um, but I have had that experience where, uh, in my waking life, I'll be doing something and it'll feel like a deja vu,
Yeah.
and it's because I've dreamt about it.
Yeah.
It's a very weird feeling.
Yes. And the other aspect of sleeping that I wanted to, in the spirit of the best of both worlds, when we're talking about sleeping and the sleep quality and how important sleep is to us, to human brain health and everything. Um, ever since we did that podcast, I actually, because algorithm knows what we're into at the moment, so I've been sent. by the Instagram gods this podcast or this snippet of podcast about how ancient human used to sleep.
Mm.
So apparently, before there is a a clock or a disruption in terms of artificial light,
Yeah.
ancient humans didn't sleep the whole 8 hours in one go. They slept the first 4 hours,
Yeah.
and then there are 1 to 2 hours time during the night where they actually were awake. And these were these hours were dedicated for like either storytelling,
Right.
going around the campfire and sharing the story and everything, and then they go back to sleep. And I have to say that I'm in the camp on thinking that we shouldn't go back to that kind of sleeping pattern, only because maybe it's better for us physiologically and psychologically.
Mm.
But we have to know that the reality of modern life is that when you wake up for 1 hour, 2 hours in the middle of the night, you're reaching for your mobile device, and that
Yes.
creates that shift in your biological clock because your brain perceives the light emitting from the screen as
Yep.
sunlight, and you will not fall asleep again.
Yeah. And so you're really you're almost tricking your brain into thinking
It's
that
daylight.
it's daylight. But yes, in fact, it's probably still 2 a.m. in the morning or 3
Well,
a.m.
there's a lot of things. It's almost like, and I'm not saying that this is exactly the same thing, but it's almost like when they say that ancient humans or our ancestors only rely on meat, like the paleo diet.
Mm.
But then again, they lived till they were like 30 years old.
Yeah.
Now we're living to 70 years old. So is it really that good?
Yeah, no, environmental and what we choose, I think, to put in our bodies, as we've discussed
Yeah.
so many times on the podcast, it makes a massive difference. We all want to live to the maximum age that our lifestyle and our bodies allow for, right?
You really can't miss the full episode when you see his face. But because I would say that I want to live as long as I'm healthy. I want to live
Mm.
for not forever. Not like I'm not biohacking my body, but of course, when you know something that will promote longevity, you would want to do that, not at the expense of your mental health, because I don't want to be someone who is very anxious about I can't eat that, I can't eat that,
Yeah.
because it's one thing to live long, but almost an entirely different thing to live well and happy.
And also have all of your mental faculties available to you. I think
That's an important point.
it's
Yeah.
one of the things that I think scares a lot of people as they get older, is that the brain ages as well, but maybe the brain stops being quite so elastic, and maybe you start to forget things. Maybe your short-term memory starts to go.
That is true. However, now having been, in your sort of kind of proximity, in your realm for the past almost a
Mm.
year,
Yeah.
you probably convinced me otherwise, because I know that you are constantly learning new stuff,
Mm.
and because you are in the technology, including AI and everything,
Yeah.
it's almost the nature of the field is it forces you to actually updating your knowledge, to actually learn more, because otherwise you miss a week, you miss a whole lot of things.
No, you're right, Dr. Vincent, that missing a week in technology, sometimes you can miss the new AI thing that's been released, or you can miss how some product changed, and then you have to learn it again. But I'm actually going to disagree with you just slightly, though,
Yeah.
because I think that all of our listeners can be curious and can be interested in learning new things.
Yes.
And I encourage people to go out and learn things in person, and do things with your knowledge. And that's how I essentially enforce that knowledge. I might read something in an article. I might do a podcast talking about breakfast, which we'll get to in just a
That's a
minute.
really good segue.
Or I might watch a YouTube article about how to do something. just this morning, I was reading that down in Tasmania, there are kelp forests around Eagle Hawk Neck, which is near Hobart, that have, unfortunately, because of the rise in ocean temperatures, they've really been impacted. And I was in Tasmania a long time ago. Our listeners know that I'm a scuba diver, and I dove those kelp forests. And it's amazing to be in 30 meters of water and the kelp go from the sea base all the way up to the surface.
Yeah.
And I encountered octopus and I encountered all these fish, and it was an amazing thing. So it's terrible in my mind that those kelp forests have been impacted so badly by the rising of the temperature and some other things that have impacted them. But I was reading this morning that there is a group of scientists and a group of divers who are replanting all of those kelp forests. Now, I immediately turned to my lovely wife and said, I'm going to Tasmania to plant kelp. And she said, no, you're not. But I love the idea. And so I read that full article, and now I'm much more informed about what happens to kelp and what happens when the sea temperature rises. And that curiosity, I think, is what I would like all of our listeners. Pick a topic.
No,
investigate.
I totally agree with that. There's no disagreement from me on that, because as a matter of fact, I personally know, and I share all of this with you too, that a lot of our listeners, when they sort of kind of learn something new. When I say sort of kind of, I didn't mean it in the meaning way. I meant it in the way that sometimes, because the nature of our conversation, we can start somewhere and have a tangent on another topic. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people say that when they listen to our podcast, it's almost like both of us having conversation and it just happened to me in the room. And I
Yeah.
take it as a compliment, because it means that you're inviting us to your home and we're having a conversation together. But what I was getting at was that a lot of people who are listening to our conversation, they 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 lock on, or it triggered something that they didn't even think about before, or they didn't even know this is something that that you need to know. The thing about podcasts, a lot of people say that in the era of AI and obviously Google, you don't need to listen to me and you talking to get information. However, for the majority of us, including myself, I don't know what to Google or what to ask AI. Sometimes it's this conversation and listening, sort of kind of quote unquote dropping to someone's conversation via podcast, for example, that allow us to do a deep dive on a certain topics. And I do think that a lot can be a lot of similarities can be drawn from, you watching the YouTube and knowing a little bit more about the impact of the rising temperature of the ocean now make you a lot more conscious and aware of the environmental changes that is happening in the world. The same at this in the same breath, a lot of people who listen to me telling them that they need to drink more water, all of a sudden now becomes more aware when it comes to, like, during winter, your body doesn't
Yeah,
feel
doesn't
thirsty.
feel
You
like
need
it.
to consciously will yourself to drink water.
Yes,
And
exactly.
this is something that
Which- Vincent actually prepares a glass for me
well, that's
every week
so that you don't
so,
cough in the
so
middle
that
of
I've got.
it's self-serving. But I really like that, because we're so busy. We can't be expected to know about everything, right? But
Exactly.
if somehow the topic that we talk about, that we raise, the problem that we put forward, or the random thinking and thought process that we are discussing somehow inspire you to want to learn more, that makes me, and I'm sure you too, Stephen, very
Me
happy.
too. Absolutely. So
Breakfast.
moving on to breakfast, we got some feedback from one of our
We did.
amazing listeners, and thank you for the feedback. We love all feedback, and I particularly liked that this particular listener was very very certain,
Yes.
and the wording of their feedback was quite strong, saying that
Yes.
breakfast, you don't need breakfast.
Yes.
He doesn't eat breakfast, and that's his choice, and that
And I'm sure
works for him.
Works for him.
Absolutely. But it got me thinking because I've heard for a number of years that breakfast is super important. And so I thought, well, is it just a marketing thing?
By Dr. Kellogg.
Yeah, by whoever, sometime in the 1940s, they came up with the breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I think that everyone will have heard that. And actually, when I reached out to a couple of my friends in other countries, they have heard that in their local language as well. So it's not just a Western thing. It's not just Australia. It's not just the US. There is this global understanding that breakfast is important.
Okay.
So I thought, well, what about the science?
Hit us, Stephen.
So I separated my query into two main groups.
Okay.
The first group are adolescents and school children and people who are, and kids essentially, because that I think is where we hear most of all where breakfast is important.
Okay.
So there have been a number of studies done for a very long time. I found studies in 2009, 2013, 2016, 2025, which I'll get to in a minute because that's the most interesting one. But also when I went further back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
Now, the ones that stood out to me the most, and I've heard this some show that I was watching, I think, they were talking about school children, particularly in the US, who are coming from families that perhaps didn't have huge means, and kids were arriving at school having not had breakfast. And so, in this particular school region, the school decided that the school canteen would open early and would feed these kids breakfast.
Okay.
It was part of, it didn't have any cost. There was no reason for the kids not to have the breakfast. And they involved some scientists to track what happened if the kids were given breakfast versus the kids that weren't given breakfast. What they found, and over a quite a large study, it's not just one place, not just one school, but what they found was that children who were given breakfast in the morning learnt better, were able to recall better, the grades improved. But the thing I think which is really super important is that socially, there was an improvement as well.
What do you mean by socially?
So the kids would engage together at the beginning of the day, and kids from outside the immediate group of friends would see each other. They would share an experience. And so a few years later, some of the same researchers went back and they'd found that in those areas, crime had decreased.
Wow.
You got better behavior, and that is not just because of breakfast, but I think the impact of the children learning, being more engaged, communicating with each other in a more friendly way over a shared meal, and we've all done that. We've all shared a meal to engage. That had a flow-on effect that reduced bad behavior in that community, and I think that's pretty amazing.
I I think so too, and I thank you so much for doing this meta studies on the study meta study on the studies that have been done in on
Mm,
this topic, and I really it brought me back to my time in Indonesia, for example, because perhaps, and I know I'm not saying this to say that there is no poverty and that there is no people doing it tough in Australia. I'm not saying that at all, but we have to admit that it is more prevalent in developing countries like Indonesia, for
mm,
example. And and I'm sure if you look closer into more detailed view of this family who probably not necessarily financially able to give their kids breakfast or good breakfast, if you look back 12 or 8 hours before that, perhaps it also impacted what they had for
mm.
dinner, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
at the very least, when you have breakfast being provided and being made available for them,
Mm.
it's almost like every kid in that school have a fair and same
It's a good
starting
starting
point.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So I'm sure that our listener who responded will be perhaps agreeing
Yeah.
with these studies. But the question is, does that continue
Yes,
as you get older?
that is also my question because yep, we I think almost everybody will agree that breakfast is really important for good learning at school.
Developing mind.
Developing mind.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly. And I just want our listeners to remember that term, developing mind.
developing mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a lot harder to find adult studies
Okay.
that look at whether breakfast is key to a healthy adult life. But in 2016, there was a paper that was written. I'm not going to try and pronounce
The author.
the authors' names because I'll get them completely wrong. But the title of the paper was "Advances in Nutrition: The Effects of Breakfast and Breakfast Composition and Cognition in Adults." And that's our question, right?
Yeah.
So, if as an adult, is it the same? Does it hold the same importance
Okay.
to have breakfast? So, this particular study pulled 38 studies looking at the acute cognitive effects of breakfast and 16 studies on breakfast composition, specifically in adults.
Okay.
So, we've moved away from the kids. We're now very squarely focused on adults. And what we're trying to do is they're trying to find what is the minimum for a healthy adult to maintain a robust advantage in memory, particularly delayed recall, so that's longer term memory,
Yes.
when they eat breakfast versus skipping it.
Okay.
Now, remember, this isn't just one study, this is multiple studies.
Yep. Almost 2 dozens.
Yeah.
Or more than. Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that the scientists out there would say, but how did you relate all of those studies? What metric did you use
Yeah.
that was common to all of those studies? And I didn't know there's a thing called an MMSE test.
Yes.
It's awesome. I've learned something every week.
There you go. Best of both worlds.
Mini mental state examination. So, in brief, it's used for assessing cognitive impairment, and it's used a lot in older adults as they get older and start to lose their memory. And it focuses on short-term memory recall, language, basic viospatial ability, and it takes 5 to 10 minutes to administer. In fact, all of our listeners, if you're worried about your current mental state and your ability to learn, you could ask your GP. You could go to a website and do the test. I went to one, Folstein.com. I did exceptionally badly because that whole website's in French.
Okay.
And I don't really understand French.
Okay. Well, just for legal purposes, this is not to diagnose, to treat, or to cure any type of illnesses, conditions, including anything that is related to your memory and cognition. And if you are worried or if you're concerned about particular types or a condition of your memory, please do consult your GP.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we've got a whole bunch of studies.
Yes.
We've got a framework and a test,
Yeah.
the MMSE test. And I'm setting all of this up because I know how passionate our listeners
I know. I'm waiting
are
for
about
bated breath.
So there was a cohort of 712 older adults. The mean age was 70.
Okay.
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 It found in an undisputed way that habitual breakfast skippers had more than double the risk of an MMSE score decline over just 24 months,
Wow.
even after adjusting for lifestyle and health factors.
So, okay. So, just to translate in plain language, it means that I know some of you probably are thinking that, people who skip breakfast in these studies probably receive or absorb less nutrients from the lunch and the dinner or whatever it is that is not part of the breakfast. But that second part, read it again, Stephen.
So breakfast skippers had more than double the risk of the MMSE score
Declining in
decline
24 months, and then
24
the next
months,
sentence.
even after adjusting for lifestyle and
So
health factors.
even after adjusting for lifestyle, which presumably I'm highly certain that it means that all of their blood works and everything shows at the same rate in terms of what they are providing their body with the types of nutrients. Uh, so the only difference is that whether or not they skip breakfast.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Yes,
And honestly, I found it slightly surprising.
me too.
So much so that I went looking for another example.
There you go.
Because, I'm not a scientist, but I am an engineer. So when I find something that I'm curious about, I then go and look for something else.
You know that scientists are always very jealous of engineers?
Are they?
Yes. Publicly, we will declare ourselves as better than engineer because we were like, we're the original thinkers.
Hmm.
You guys are just
We
implement.
just build stuff.
Yes, but when someone when a group of people very passionately and strongly declare something, that's usually are deeply rooted in insecurity. And as a scientist, I know that because my dad is an engineer, so I'm slightly jealous of that. And not jealous, envious, admiring. Go on.
I feel admired. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
So, and this will be my last study because I don't want to send all of our listeners to sleep.
Yeah.
2025 study. So quite pretty recent.
Yes.
Almost 900 adults. And the average age was a little less. It was about around 60.
Oh, I like
60
this.
years old. Yeah. So it found that habitual breakfast skippers had a significantly lower MMSE score by a slightly longer mark. So if you skip breakfast for 2 or 3 years, it was looking at that period of time. So this isn't people who skip breakfast on Monday and then they work out on Tuesday if they've got a lower score. These are people that just don't have breakfast
Yes.
over a long period of time, 2 or 3 years. So the score decreased. So it's in line with the study that we were just talking about. But the other thing that this study was also looking at was Alzheimer's.
Okay. In terms of risk of developing?
Exactly. So if you skip, and this is the outcome from this paper, which is a bit scary, but if you skip breakfast, those people, those almost 900 people who were a part of this study, had higher levels of the Alzheimer's related biomarkers, PTAU 181 and
Yep.
NFL. And for me, that's a reason to have breakfast.
There you go. And if you need to know which type of breakfast that suits your lifestyle or your background in terms of your culture, go back to 2 episodes ago or 3.
Yep.
Where we went around the world on a tour of what people in different parts of the world have for breakfast, which is it remains one of my most favorite segment out of our After Hours podcast.
I'm still missing roti and scrambled eggs for breakfast. I might do that tomorrow.
And somebody, thank you, Kath. Somebody actually just commented on that. Kat said that depends on what you have for breakfast. Having cereal carbs is not good for Alzheimer's dementia. I totally agree, which is the reason why I directed people to go to that episode. But to summarize very, very quickly, of course, it depends on what you're having, what your lifestyle and what you do for work. For example, people who work manual job or people who work something that requires a lot of physical energy and exertion, there is an argument that that carbohydrate part of the breakfast is very, very useful. But there are also some people who lead a sedentary lifestyle. They don't need that amount of carbs, especially simple carbs, because now that we know a lot more about blood sugar and how it affects our day and our health and well-being, we know that when you have that simple carbs, you get that sugar spike and energy, but then it will come crashing down very, very quickly too. But that in itself is not a reason to cut out breakfast altogether. I agree with you that we can be smarter and we can be more well informed in designing what we have for breakfast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What did you have for breakfast this morning, Vincent?
I have to say that I am a breakfast skipper, although I might be I might be a comfort now because one of the things that I have. So I don't know whether or not this is sharing too much, but and I'm not, again, not generalizing, but growing up, especially as millennials, I mean, even probably now, when you socialize and when you go out for either clubbing or the nightlife,
Yeah.
there 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 was a little bit of a social sort of kind of influence from people who, say, for example, take recreational drugs or things like that, mushrooms, you know.
Yeah.
And I've never taken any, and I know that it's not something that I'm boasting about or saying that I'm better or anything. There's nothing like that. The reason why I mention this is because uh, my personal reason of not taking recreational drugs is because I'm always very, very worried that it will alter my mind or make me quote unquote dumb. I know this is not scientifically true, but
Mm.
as a teenager or as a young adult, this is what I was fearing.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said that is because now I am reconsidering my lifestyle when it comes to skipping breakfast, because with the same conviction of not wanting to be dumb,
Mm.
I probably need to eat breakfast.
Yeah. Look, I think that really the wrap up of the whole breakfast question that we've been discussing now for a few podcasts is you need to listen to what your body is saying. You need to have things, you need to put into your body the things that are going to help you be healthy and focused. And if you've got a really uh, sedentary lifestyle and you eat a huge amount of food, if you snack all of the time, then that's going to have an impact on your body. And you'll see that. You'll step onto your scales and you'll see the impact of that. So
Yeah.
it's about having things in moderation.
Yep.
I don't think it's such a bad idea that, if one of our listeners flies to Paris and they're on holiday and they get up in the morning, and I found it really hard to find breakfast in Paris because a typical Parisian breakfast is apparently a coffee and a cigarette.
I was about to say that.
Um,
And their
and
brunch would be a glass of Chardonnay
yeah, and it's
or Chablis.
a Chablis, yeah. And you walk into one of the cafes and it's all sweet breads and croissants, and they're amazing.
And there is nothing wrong with that.
There's
Take
nothing
it
wrong
from
with
me.
that.
There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that.
But the French don't do that every day
No.
either. So
And they have in a small amount too. And I have to say that the way that they, well, at least traditionally, process their flour and everything, they develop the dough overnight instead of a fast, quick rise that we do in probably not so much here, but certainly in places like America. And the other thing that I also want to mention when it comes to skipping breakfast, I know for a fact the reason why I skip breakfast, it has nothing to do with health. It has something to do with vanity, which because I am trying to bank my calorie allowance.
Yeah.
If I skip breakfast and I skip lunch, maybe I will I will be able to eat more calories at dinner. And there's also an argument that when you're fasting, it's actually a good chance for your biological function to sort of kind of flushes and cleans and detox itself,
Yeah.
which let me tell you, it is not a scientific term. But again, I totally agree with you. It is something that needs to suit your lifestyle. Somebody told me something that's so profoundly wise, especially coming from someone who struggled with his weight or body image very, very early on in life. Um, if you can't sustain it, that is not something that you should be doing. Say, for example, if people who are not doing, who go to the gym like regularly and they can sustain it and it doesn't take away the joy and the quality of life, then that's fine. But at the same time, if you have to struggle to meet that standard that you set for yourself, I think that's an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was the first meal that you had today then?
The first meal that I had today was at around 10 o'clock. Are we on? Hi, Vicky. Sorry, I was not waving, but okay, I'm waving too. Uh, uh, I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about the first meal that you had today.
Apples.
Apples, always apples.
Well, I had a, because we just did filming on Thursday, so usually I only have one apple. But today I had both green Kansy apple and Granny Smith apple.
Nice. What was your favorite?
Jonagold. Or actually, no. I have to say that no, that's wrong. So I like Jonagold, but I really it really depends on the crispness. So really, really good crisp Granny Smith is good.
Yeah.
But if you can get like a really crunchy, fresh Fuji apple, that would
Okay.
be my favorite.
Yeah.
How about yours?
I probably like Pink Lady
Pink Lady?
or Delicious. I think one of the two.
Red Delicious?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Delicious is a little bit, it can be a little bit mushy. Are you serious? You can't hear us? I'm not saying you're lying. It's on. Look at this. Okay, yes, we are live on Substack too, Kat. Can you hear us now? Stephen just have to speak up.
I could speak up. I've still got is maybe a Bluetooth microphone is not on.
Can you hear us now? Yes, Kat, we are live on Substack too. No, not working. That's not us, and that's probably. I'm so sorry. But anyway, we're coming to the end of this. The reason why I wanted to highlight the topic as the best of both worlds is because sometimes in life, the same thing with health and wellness, we have two very opposing but still convincing views. At the end of the day, it is really like what Stephen's sorry, Ricky. Like what Stephen said before, it is just about what fits your lifestyle, what fits your life, and something that doesn't take away the joy of living. Because I know that I watch the documentary of the Next Top Model on Netflix, and which is very, very illuminating because the amount of sacrifices and a physical toll that these models were doing to look that good were so big, and the question is that they get paid for it. I don't think that the rest of us wants to be miserable just to meet that beauty standard that nobody even signed on to agree with in the first place. What I'm trying to say is that I have a lot to learn when it comes to separating and detaching vanity to health and wellness, and this is one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast weekly, because there's so many aspects to health, like what Stephen said. This is probably the third or fourth week that we're talking about breakfast. Something that not a lot of people think about, whether or not you skip or not, but clearly it's something that people have a lot of opinions about.
Absolutely. I do think in future podcasts we should deal with lunch, afternoon tea, and dinner and supper.
Yeah.
Because there are so many cultural differences depending on where you live, depending on where you grew up, even what your parents were doing, that really focus on what you have for those meals as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully our listeners will be interested in that, but I'll do a little bit more research. How soon before you go to bed should you be able to eat? Is it the same as going in the ocean?
Yes.
So many questions.
And and this is one thing that I want to make. We don't normally promise what we will be discussing in the next episode, but I know I was having a little bit of a pick on Stephen's note today. Next week we're going to talk about cortisol, because the endocrine system in our body is mapping our being, and the elevation or the decrease in the level of cortisol and other hormones are very profound and significant in terms of what manifests in our health. So let's talk about it next week.
Sounds great. Until then,
I'm Dr. Vincent.
And I'm Stephen. Thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye-bye. And I'm so sorry about the sound. We'll fix it somehow.
Somehow.
That's his department.
What?
Bye.
Bye.